Part 1. Straight Facts. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 78, settled in Milton, Ohio. I'll keep it plain. Places, dates, what happened. Polk City, Iowa, where it started. Father, Harvey. Mother, Loretta. Our place sat 3 miles off the highway. Clapboard house, slat barn, corn rows like rails. A pond iced thin by November. At 9, my parents shut the windows and began what they called preparing me to be a wife. It wasn't lessons. It was criminal. I won't spell it out. You understand enough. Sunday Fair, Polk County. A boy from Columbus bought peanut brittle and grinned like trouble wasn't invented yet. Name, Noah Sanders. He asked mine, then disappeared into the crowd. A week later he came proper, cap in hand. He drove for Buckeye Freight, paid by the mile, rented a room at Mrs. Dallas's on Maple. My father weighed his words like nails on a scale and finally said, "You earn. We can talk marriage." To me, he said, "Preparation continues." From then, everything quickened. A month out from the wedding, Thursdays turned into locked doors and a kerosene lamp. My mother stationed herself in a chair, eyes somewhere past the wall. Same lines, same orders. One evening, near dark, I was in my parents' room making the bed tight as a drum. A shadow crossed the window pane. Tap, tap, Noah's face. I lifted the latch and he slipped inside, boots quiet on the rug. The door swung at once. Harvey strode in, unbuckling his belt, calling it a final rehearsal. Noah stepped between us. "I heard you in the hall," he said. "This isn't raising a daughter." Harvey swung. Noah moved and sent him into the door jamb hard enough to rattle picture frames. The lamp guttered and died. Mother screamed. We didn't pause. Out through the kitchen, across the back stoop, past the rain barrel. Behind the shed stood Uncle Jed's sorrel mare tied to a fence rail. Noah vaulted up, reached back, yanked me into the saddle, and we were dust and hoofbeats down the lane. We cut through soy rows and hit the ditch behind town. 5 minutes later, we hammered on the boarding house kitchen. Mrs. Dallas opened, took one look, and started giving directions the way a sergeant gives orders. "Sheriff's on his way. Fairground lot. Green Buckeye truck. My nephew Dan. Put this on." She handed me a plain work dress. I pulled it over the nightgown, jammed my braid under a scarf, and we slipped out the back between wash lines. At the market, Dan was ratcheting a gate on a truck bed. "Aunt said you'd come," he muttered. "Get low. I'm bound for Dayton." We climbed under tarps, breathful of burlap and apple crates. Men shouted behind us, boots slapping gravel. Dan slammed the latch and stomped the gas. Stalls blurred. Someone popped a flashbulb. Then the town shrank to a hinge in the rear view, and Route 35 unrolled like dark ribbon. Dayton by midnight. Noah counted the money, $38 and a Buckeye badge. 2 tickets to Toledo. In Toledo we found coffee at a church hall, slept with our backs to a radiator, then rode east to Cleveland. On the Cuyahoga docks, Noah asked for a shift. The foreman, Harry Lewis, sized him up and put a hook in his hand. I found day work at Lake and Cobra Laundry. Linens in, steam out, fingers pruned. We rented a basement room on West 58th that smelled of coal and cabbage. 1 week later, 2 men from Story County came around asking for a Sanders with a girl. Harry intercepted them, returned shrugging, and told Noah, "No Sanders on my dock." After shift, he handed over a gray stevedore jacket and said, "Put your name down as Nate Coldwell. Cousin in print can make it neat." 2 months later, we stood in front of a municipal judge with paper rings and tired smiles. Witnesses were Harry and his wife. That night, Noah brought a rye heel and 2 oranges and said, "Call it cake." I took the new last name like a clean ledger. Work, winter, rent due Fridays. A year later, we moved to Erie, Pennsylvania. Night crews needed hands. A patch factory needed stitchers. I learned to run a narrow hem. Noah pushed fish carts until his shoulders knotted. We rented a shack 2 blocks off the quay. Mrs. O'Malley next door taught me to seal jars and slipped us an old dresser with a swollen drawer. In a false bottom, we found 4 blank county birth forms from the 30s. I taped a note inside the back. Dressers keep secrets. It seemed true. 1970 brought a letter with Milton postmarks and Mrs. Dallas's tight script. Harvey dead, priest by the bed, asked forgiveness. Loretta housed by the Olsons. I rode Greyhound alone. The Olsons' spare room held my mother, reduced to angles and breath. She didn't try to excuse anything, just said, "I was afraid. You were right to go." She pressed a small box into my palm, a silver locket, then closed her eyes. I visited 2 stones the next morning and spoke to neither. Back to the depot. Back home. Life steadied. We bought a small house in Milton with a garage prone to flooding. I put a singer on a plywood table and stitched hems for the mechanics, band curtains for the high school, flags for the gym. Noah earned his CDL. We bought an old International Harvester, then another. Coldwell Hall was a hand-painted sign and a tin roof at the edge of town. What changed the current was a cardboard notebook I pulled from a basement crate. Names, dates, who saw, who said. I copied everything and mailed it to Corporal Souls in Lucas County. He showed an assistant DA. Answer came back. Most counts expired. But there's room on guardianship abuse, conspiracy, obstruction. I sent addresses of 2 Polk City families who'd seen too much. The sheriff found old reports by Miss Rose, filed and misplaced. Now they were exhibits. I went back to Iowa, not hiding this time. 2 investigators met me. The current owner let us into our old house. In a ceiling void above the bedroom, they pulled a tobacco tin, a list of rules, 2 film rolls, 1 leaflet in Loretta's hand marking lesson hours. Bagged, tagged, logged. No television, no grand jury speeches. The court put it on record and sentenced 3 living adults who'd enabled it. Probation, fines, permanent bars from youth work. 1 line from the bench counted most. These acts are violence. Period. That sentence did what I needed. It hung a sign on history that nobody could take down. Noah later died the way he wanted. Quickly, at the shop, wrench still warm. I sold 1 tractor and signed the second over to our boy, Grayson. Our girl, Helen, runs paramedic calls. On Saturdays, I host Paper versus Lies at the library. Kids learn to write what stands up in court. Date, time, names, who you called, where it went. No speeches, no weeping, just entries. If you want a romance, pick another porch. If you want an algorithm, here. Open a window, move fast, find a truck, change your name, keep a ledger, send copies, sign complaints, clock back in. That's how I got from there to here. The locket hangs on my granddaughter Lila. I told her it's only metal. The inheritance worth keeping is a call list and 3 good photocopies. Part 2, the paper route, Milton Library, Saturday. I showed teens how to stamp time on truth. After class, I opened my own ledger and drew a box. Iowa, Phase 2. Items, 1. County archives, story and polk, school reports, truant notes, welfare visits. 2. Church records, pastor appointments, counseling logs. 3. Neighbor statements, Olson family, Dallas, Dan from Buckeye, Harry Lewis. 4. Any film, any list, any calendar. I called Corporal Souls. I'm driving out Monday, I said. He looped in ADA Keegan. Clean talker, no gloss. Chain of custody, she said. If you find it, don't touch it. Call me before local deputies. Some of them are cousins. I took the interstate at dawn. Coffee thermos. Notebook on the seat. First stop, Polk City Registrar. A clerk named Merrill wore a cardigan and suspicion. I signed the book, handed her a letter from Keegan, and asked for school board minutes, 1957-1966, plus any teacher complaints. She slid 3 boxes through the slot like I'd ordered bricks. Box 2 held what mattered. Agenda 11. Miss Rose, concerns regarding home training at Carter and Tate residences. The pages had a rubber stamp. Deferred. I took photos, page to page, date to date, circle on the stamp. Next, church office. Pastor now was young, name Weller. Not the man I remembered. Where's Reverend Whitcomb's counseling logs? I asked. He hesitated until I placed Keegan's letter on the desk. He brought a steel file. There it sat, column sheets with initials and times. 2 lines in Whitcomb's hand. Carter family. Thursday nights. Prayer for obedience. I didn't preach at him. I photographed and returned the file. I crossed the road to the cemetery and read the stones again to put the geography straight. Carter, Whitcomb, Tate. A triangle within half a mile. I wrote it down. Diagrams go further than speeches. At the old house, the current owner, Dana Lutz, met me with a key and a flashlight. Souls and a county investigator came with body cams rolling. The ceiling void above the bedroom had already given up a tin, but the joists held more. Dana's boy had heard mice up there and laid a board across studs. I slid the board aside and saw a cigar box wrapped in oilcloth. Souls gloved up, lifted it, tagged it. Inside, a school notebook titled House Order. Pages ruled with pencil. Thursday preparation, lamp oil, window lock, list of sayings. There was also a carbon paper sheet, blue and brittle, pressed over names. Tate, Roper, Whitcomb, initials, and check marks. No theories, just inventory. We bagged it. I drove to Ames for microfilm. University Library held Polk County newspapers on reels. I scrolled by hand until my wrists hurt, hunting for anything that rhymed with our dates. There it was. Small notices. Youth Fellowship Thursdays, Home Instruction Talk, Rev Whitcomb, Safety Meeting, Farmstead Practices. I wrote headlines, dates, page numbers. Keegan likes indices. So do judges. Back in town, an old Ford idled at the diner. The driver was Clyde Roper, one of the uncles, now gray and thinner. He watched me through glass like I was a billboard. I ordered chili, paid cash, and walked out without turning my head. I called Souls from the car. He knows I'm here. Good, Souls said. Let him stew. We met the Olsons after supper. Thelma had kept a biscuit tin of her mother's things. Inside, a note from my mother asking for help on Thursdays, and receipts from the church pantry for kerosene and bread on those same days. Dates matched our ledger. We signed affidavits in their kitchen. Thelma's husband notarized. He runs a scrap yard and a notary out of the same desk. Small towns double up on function. Night at the Maple Inn. I laid everything on the bed, ordered by time, not feeling. Minutes, logs, tins, notes, adverts, receipts. I numbered each and wrote a 1-line caption. That's for juries. 1 glance, 1 meaning. Morning courthouse. Keegan arrived with a scanner and a portable seal, hair still damp from travel. You did half my job, she said. Good. Now the part that hurts. She walked affidavits to a judge named Morales. Circuit. Plain spoken. He signed warrants for Whitcomb's stored records and for searches at the Tate and Roper properties. Limited scope. Lists, schedules, any media. We're not fishing, Keegan said. We're shopping with a list. The Tate farm stood like a calendar photo. Painted mailbox, perfect gravel. In the attic, we found a ledger disguised as a seed book, entries in block letters. Thursday, sea oil, boys to wreck, girls to study. Souls radioed the chain of custody number, sealed the book, and handed Tate a receipt. Tate tried a speech about tradition. Keegan cut him off. You can save that for arraignment. Roper's place had less theater. He kept a milk crate of film canisters in a chest freezer under a tarp. Dates scratched into lids. We called a state tech, mobile darkroom van with a red bulb and a table. The van whirred. The tech developed 2 strips on site and sealed the rest. The visible frames were rooms, curtains, a clock at 7:41, a hand setting a lamp wick. No faces. Enough context. Keegan smiled without her mouth. That'll do. Pastor Whitcomb's son opened an old parsonage storage closet with a key that hadn't turned in 20 years. Mice had eaten hymnals. The good paper survived. A manila folder labeled Council, Girls' Authority, held printed talking points about submission. We didn't debate doctrine. We took the copies, logged the box, affixed the seal. Moving on. Back in Ohio, Harry Lewis penned a sworn statement about the dock day. 2 men asking for Sanders with a girl. Harry sending them away. Me working under a false name for safety. He added, unprompted, I'd do it again. Good. Juries like men who speak in threes. We scheduled depositions at the Milton Library meeting room. Mrs. Dallas, Dan with the green truck, Mrs. O'Malley with the dresser, Thelma with the receipts, Weller with the logs, Merrill with the stamped minutes, Souls with the tin, Tech with the film. Keegan built a timeline board that looked like a freight schedule. Columns, stops, cargo. She let me tape the first card. Window unlatched, Noah, exit, Buckeye truck, Route 35. Law can carry poetry if you hide it in the grid. Arraignment day came quiet. No TV vans, just farmers in caps and a clerk with a new stapler. Tate and Roper stood with counsel. Whitcomb's estate sent a lawyer to argue over files. Judge Morales read counts: conspiracy to commit abuse, obstruction, aiding and abetting. Not ancient, he said. Ongoing until stopped. Defense tried custom. Morales tapped the bench. Custom doesn't legalize harm. He set conditions: no contact with minors, surrender passports, surrender church keys, dates for pleas, and a bench trial on the records issues. That night I drove home on Route 30 and stopped at a truck plaza. Our boy Grayson was fueling an International, grease up to his wrists. He grinned like his father. You look like you won, he said. No, I told him. We documented. He laughed. Same thing in the long run. Saturday again. Library again. I wrote a new rule on the board for my class. If it isn't written, it didn't happen. Then I added the corollary. If it is written, they can't unhappen it. Before I locked up, a girl from the back row, Lana, handed me a composition book. I started logging, she said. First page had neat lines: bus stop, time, plate numbers of cars that slowed. I praised the format, not the fear. Add dates to the corner, I said. Left margin is for who you told. At home, I opened the silver locket. Inside was a tiny photo of my mother at 16, jaw set like a latch. I put it back and closed the catch. Metal is symbol. Paper is leverage. Next phase sits ready. Probate for Whitcomb's records, civil complaints for damages against the enablers, a letter to the state licensing board for counselors, and one visit to a foundation in Des Moines that funded home training. Money leaves footprints. We'll follow those next. Part 3. Follow the Money Des Moines, Monday, 9:10 a.m. I walked into the Secretary of State's office with a quarter roll and a list. Target: Prairie Hearth Foundation, the group that printed home training pamphlets. I paid for articles of incorporation, amendments, officer lists. Names popped: Chair, Eldon Brack, Treasurer, Marla Vick, Registered Agent, Hollis and Keene, CPAs. I photographed every page and wrote 3 arrows in my notebook. Bank, 990s, grants. Across the street, the state library kept IRS Form 990 microfiche. I pulled reels, fed the viewer, and read line items out loud for cadence. Program service expense, lectures and materials, $18,440. Grants to organizations, $12,000. Tate Fellowship. There it was. Our Tate. Schedule B listed donors above $5,000. Most were masked. One wasn't. Whitcomb Memorial Trust, $7,500. I printed copies and labeled them by year. Phoned to Keegan. We've got financial ties. Whitcomb to Foundation, Foundation to Tate. Keegan said, hold for subpoenas. Meanwhile, accountant. Hollis and Keene sat on the 11th floor. Carpet the color of oatmeal. I asked for Marla Vick. She came out with a polite face and a pen that clicked too often. I said one sentence. I'm a victim, not a reporter, and the ADA already has the judge. She stopped clicking. We're custodians, not authors, she said. You want source ledgers, check registers, donor correspondence. I nodded. She slid a business card across the table and wrote on the back, Boxes 1416 Basement Archive. Ask Pete. That was all I needed. Basement smelled of paper and old glue. Pete rolled out 3 bank boxes with dust like flour. I didn't touch. I called Keegan. She called Morales. Souls drove the SEAL kit over. We inventoried, canceled checks to Tate Fellowship, reimbursement to C. Roper, speaker mileage, an invoice for lamps, wicks, curtain fabric, paid to Farm Supply Cooperative. One letter on Whitcomb's parsonage letterhead. Enclosed our yearly gift. Continue the work. Keegan placed each item in clear sleeves with tags. No speeches, just catalog. Prairie Hearth's office was 5 blocks away in a brick walk-up. Door sign crooked. 2 desks, file cabinet with a broken lock. Director, Eldon Brack. Wiry, blue tie, mouth like a stapler. He tried the good work script. I set the 990 prints on his desk, then the parsonage letter, then the check to Tate. Your lectures and materials funded abuse logistics. He reached for the papers. I tapped them with my pen. Don't touch what's already evidence. Keegan entered behind me with a deputy and a warrant. We left with the server tower, the donor database, and 5 cartons of brochures. On the way out, Brack muttered about persecution. Keegan said, bookkeeping. Back in Iowa City, probate court. Whitcomb's son argued pastor-penitent privilege. Morales read his own precedent. Financial transactions aren't penitence. He ordered production of non-spiritual records, ledgers, donor memos, calendars, counseling schedules. The son handed over 2 binders and a box of appointment cards with Thursdays circled in red pencil. One card said, Carter, obedience. We added it to the chain. Roper's lawyer filed a motion to suppress the freezer films. Keegan answered with photos of the chest, the lid intact, the time-stamped video, and the consent form Roper signed when he thought he had nothing to hide. Morales denied the motion. Trial date set. I drove to Cleveland for Harry's deposition. He wore his old Steve Dorr jacket, set his hat on the table, and said his piece clear. 2 men asking, him sending them off, me folding towels under a false name because I was afraid to go home. Defense tried to needle. Did you instruct her to evade law enforcement? Harry: I instructed her to keep working. Court reporter smiled into her keyboard. Eerie, Mrs. O'Malley's turn. She produced the dresser's false bottom and those blank birth certificates. Found them there. Didn't use them, I said. She confirmed the date we opened it and the location. We logged the compartment dimensions. A jury loves measurements. Milton, Licensing Board complaint. I mailed a packet to the State Board for pastoral counselors, copies of submission handouts, appointment cards, donor links. I asked for revocation of the late Whitcomb's credential to trigger a notice to all churches that used his materials. They answered within the month. Credential vacated. Advisory issued statewide. Materials flagged as harmful. I pinned the advisory to the library corkboard, eye level. Next, private money. The Des Moines Foundation had a silent partner, Midland Grain Cooperative. Their name sat on a tiny note inside the donor database. I drove to the co-op office, flats of seed corn out front, receptionist with a pencil behind her ear. I asked for the CFO, showed the ADA letter, and requested internal memos referencing Prairie Hearth. The CFO arrived with a cautious smile. We gave to rural family programs, he said. We'll cooperate. He did. His email to the board admitted branding risk and recommended ceasing support after complaints about content. Timestamp: 2 years before I returned. They knew. They slowed funding, but never warned the county. Keegan marked the memo, pattern knowledge. We prepped for the bench trial on records. Keegan built another grid. Left column, date, middle document, right, effect. She handed me the laser pointer. I prefer chalk, but I kept the dots steady as I hopped. Teacher minutes, pantry receipts, counseling cards, donor flows, checks to Tate, reimbursements to Roper, lamps and curtains purchases, freezer films. Morales listened, chin on fist. Defense tried anachronism. Morales answered, harm doesn't age. Verdict on the records, admissible. Morales said the line I'd wanted in black and white for 60 years. Labeling coercion as training does not change its nature or its legality. It is abuse. Civil phase opened. Keegan referred me to a lean attorney named Haskin. Contingency, no billboard. We filed against Prairie Hearth, Tate, Roper, and the Whitcomb Trust for damages and injunctive relief. No more materials, no contact with minors, funding redirected to survivor clinics. We served papers. Brack folded first, offered settlement and a public apology template. I said, no apology templates. Sign the injunction, fund the clinic, and publish the full donor list. He signed. Tate tried to hide assets by moving tractors to a nephew. Haskin recorded a lease pendants and walked the sheriff to the barn. The nephew handed back the keys when he saw the badge. Roper sold a parcel to pay counsel, and through counsel, sent me a 2-line note. I won't speak. I won't touch another child. I filed it under statements, not trust. We launched the clinic in Ames with the redirected money. I insisted on 3 rooms: intake, nurse, copier. The copier is for ledgers and forms. Intake can't replace evidence. On opening day, I taught the first workshop: date, time, location, who heard, who intervened, where it's written. A girl asked why the copier matters. Because paper survives nerves, I said. She nodded like she'd just found a tool. On my way out, I stopped at the locket shop on Main and asked the jeweler to replace the glass. He cleaned the hinge, slid in a new pane, and handed it back with a cloth. Family? He asked. Source, I said. Next stops are mapped. Deposition of Pastor Weller on custody of records, subpoena to Midland's PR firm, FOIA request for any state grants that touched Prairie Hearth, and a quiet visit to the county fair board that hosted those talks. They book vendors with contracts. Contracts list contact names. Contact names lead to more boxes. I drove home at dusk, parked by the shed, and found Grayson tightening a belt on the International. What's tomorrow? He asked. Fair board, then bank boxes 1720, I said. He wiped his hands. You need a hand truck? Always, I told him. That's the pace now. No rage, no grandstanding. Just receipts, reels, seals, and court dates. We'll keep moving until the stack stands taller than the excuses. Part 4. The Circuit Breaker. Tuesday, 8:05 a.m., Polk County Fair Board. 5 members, coffee and paper cups, the flag still folded from last night's meeting. I set a single sheet on the table. Vendor contract number 22143. Prairie Hearth Foundation, educational booth. Signature line. Chair. D. Keever. Clause 7. Materials presented must comply with state law. Violation voids permit. I pointed at the clause. Keegan slid in a notice of violation and a subpoena for contact names. Keever swallowed, opened a metal tin, and produced 3 folders: applications, insurance riders, and a laminated speaker list. Names: Brack, Tate, Roper, plus 2 alternates I hadn't seen, R. Cray, Mrs. Falk. We photocopied everything. Keegan stamped, received. 11:20 a.m., Midland Grain PR firm. Lobby smelled like citrus and toner. Their account lead tried a handshake and a smile. I held up the subpoena for communications containing Prairie Hearth or home training. She asked for time. Keegan said, "You have 30 minutes to image the mailbox. We'll supervise the export." It rolled a cart. We watched the progress bar crawl. Out came a thumb drive and a print stack. Crisis memos, talking points, a risk matrix rating county backlash as low. I circled the date. 2 summers ago, during the same fair where they hosted the booth. 1:40 p.m., bank boxes 17 to 20, Hollis and Keene basement. We logged contents before air hit the paper. A MailChimp export, venue contracts, a donor dinner seating chart, and a spiral-bound volunteer script. Script lines. Say training, not discipline. If asked about consent, say tradition. In the back, a page titled Thursday Rotations, cross-reference to families by initials. I anchored each binder with a tag, handed the list to Souls, and watched him seal. Next day, I walked into USPS inspection with an envelope of Prairie Hearth bulk mail receipts. Inspector Glasser has a plain tie and a patient face. I said, "Nonprofit permit used to distribute material encouraging criminal conduct." He flipped 2 forms, nodded once, and opened a case. 18 U.S.C., par of 1341, mail fraud theory tied to false charitable solicitation. He requested the printer invoices. I already had the number from the ledger. We subpoenaed. The printer coughed up proofs and shipping slips. Skids labeled to 8 counties. Thursday night, we went to the Johnson County Fair undercover. Keegan wore a ball cap. I carried a raffle ticket booklet. Prairie Hearth's booth had gingham cloth, a felt board, and stacks of lecture notes. I bought a pamphlet for $1, marked the serial in my notebook, and asked the kid at the table for the parent sessions. He pointed at a schedule card. I scanned it and texted Souls. Back tent, 7:30. He came with a deputy and a portable scanner. We waited for the opener, then stepped in and read the warrant. Phones on tables, a laptop, a little cash bag, and one crate under the table with handwritten name tabs. We tagged, bagged, and left the felt board standing for the crowd to see what was missing. Depositions started the following week. Pastor Weller first, custodian of Whitcomb's records. He tried the soft voice routine. Haskin kept it to yes, no. Is this your calendar? Yes. Did Thursdays denote home visits? Yes. Were donations routed through your trust? Yes. Any mandatory reporter filings? No. Court reporter kept up. Morales would like the brevity. Midland's board chair sat for his turn. We put up the risk matrix. You knew the content flagged as harmful. We received concerns, yes. You continued funding after concerns. For a period. Did you notify county authorities? No. Haskin slid him the settlement terms: withdrawal, apology, funding to the clinic. He asked for an hour, came back with a pen. We filed FOIA on state grants touching Prairie Hearth. 3 weeks later, a packet arrived from the Department of Human Services. A mini grant labeled Family Resilience Workshops, awarded 5 years ago. The proposal text matched the volunteer script line for line. I called the grants officer. She said, they self-certified content compliance. Keegan drafted a referral to the AG for clawback and debarment. The AG added a statewide bulletin. Any curriculum using obedience rotations language is non-compliant. Report instances to this hotline. I taped the bulletin at 3 libraries in the feed store. Tate's Farm, Tuesday, 6:30 a.m. Sheriff's trucks lined the lane. Haskin's Lis pendens had ripened into writs. We coordinated seizure clean. Inventory first, no drama. 2 tractors, a baler, and a lockbox from the office safe. Inside the lockbox, a list titled Guest Teachers, with first names and distances, plus a Polaroid of a back room with a chalkboard that read, Thurs 8 p.m. We matched the paneling to a community hall in Slater. Same knot pattern, same exit sign scuff. Souls pulled last month's rental log. There was Tate's signature. That gave us venue negligence leverage. The hall board accepted a consent order. No rentals without background checks for training organizations, contract language updated, staff trained. I called Miss Rose, the retired teacher who'd filed the misplaced reports in the 60s. We met at the public school library. She brought the carbon copies of her notes. Principal told me to drop it, she said, then slid me a folder marked Kept Anyway. We scanned every page, called the district's council, and asked for the full personnel file on the principal. Inside, 2 parent complaints, same vocabulary, no action. The district agreed to publish an archival acknowledgement. Dry administrative language, but permanent. I asked them to add a mandatory in-service, recognizing coercive training euphemisms. Approved. USPS Glasser moved fast. He traced nonprofit permit payments to a personal card, Brax. That broke the custodian-only line. He was financier and user. A grand jury returned a narrow indictment: mail fraud, false solicitation, and a conspiracy count tethered to the Thursday rotations. Brack pled down to 1 count and a cooperation agreement. Turn over the donor list, the speaker roster, and an affidavit explaining the script. He signed. We scheduled a controlled burn of the materials. Legal term is destruction under order. I insisted on two things: full inventory before and a public notice after. We stacked pallets in a waste-to-energy plant, scanned each bundle, then fed the hopper. Keegan read the docket number into the camera. No theatrics, just exit of supply. Next, the little things that keep a machine from restarting. I walked into the county fair vendor meeting and passed out a one-page checklist. If you hear these phrases, obedience rotations, final rehearsal, preparing for husband, end the session and call this number. No debate. We moved to the next agenda item, lemonade pricing. Later, I dropped off a laminated copy at the Grange in the VFW hall. Clinic metrics mattered. We built a tracker. How many intakes, how many reports filed, how many evidence packets secured. Month 1, 14 intakes, 9 reports, 6 packets. Month 2, 23, 17, 12. We adjusted staffing, added a second copier and a clerk with courthouse experience. The clerk, Janie, set up color-coded tabs: red for criminal, blue for civil, green for medical. No lost pages, no bottlenecks. I closed the loop with Mrs. Dallas. We met on her back stoop. She poured 2 lemonades. I gave her a bound copy of the public filings that mention her assist. She shook her head. I just opened a door, she said. That's the work, I answered. She smiled without pride and pointed at a young couple hauling a suitcase up the stairs. Boarding house still does what it does. Grayson hauled the hand truck to my trunk for the next run. County records, boxes 2123. On top of box 21, someone had written a number in pencil, 0518. I took a photo. Doors and codes repeat when a system thinks it's clever. We'll use that. Tomorrow, deposition of R. Cray, printer site visit, and a sit-down with the AG's policy team to codify the FAIR checklist into regulation. Then back to Milton for Saturday's Paper versus Lies. New kids show up every week. I give them clipboards, not speeches. We keep tripping breakers until the circuit can't carry current. Then we padlock the panel and leave a sign. Closed by order of the court. Part 5. The Last Mile. 8 a.m. AG's policy room. Whiteboard squares, dry markers, dying mid-stroke. I slid the FAIR checklist across the table and said, "Make it rule text." 2 lawyers translated it into code sections, added an enforcement note: revoke vendor permits on first violation, no grace period. We tacked on a hotline script for clerks, 3 questions, then transfer to investigators. Draft stamped, routed for notice and comment by Friday. 10:30 a.m. Deposition. R. Cray. Real name: Randall Cray. Logistics consultant for Prairie Hearth. Moonlighting at the printer. Haskin ran tight. Did you order bulk mail? Yes. Who paid? Brack. Did you see curriculum language? Yes. Was final rehearsal in the copy? He hesitated. Yes. We slid the proof with his sign-off. He folded fast, provided a routing map. Des Moines hub, then county spurs, then private drop points coded by birds. I wrote each bird next to a location: hawk, Slater, sparrow, Radnor, heron, Kelly Ridge. Noon, printer floor. Offset presses humming, the smell of ink like pennies in rain. Manager produced job jackets with carbon slips, each with an internal code. One code repeated, 0518, same pencil number as on box 21. I asked, "What's 0518? He said, "Plant default pin, unbinders, file room." People reuse numbers. Systems love it. Glasser grinned. We walked to the caged inventory, tapped 0518, bolt slid. Inside, 2 skids of pamphlets and a banker's box labeled returns. Returns held complaint letters from 3 counties and 1 refund check never cashed. We bagged the lot. 2:15 p.m. Courthouse Annex, rulemaking hearing. 5 attendees, 1 mic that squealed. A lobbyist tested a tradition speech. I answered with exhibits, the volunteer script, the risk matrix, the Thursday rotation sheet. The clerk read the adoption language. Vote carried. Effective in 30 days. I took 6 printed copies and drove 1 to the Grange myself. 4:40 p.m. County records, boxes 21 to 23. Janie's tabs paid off. Box 22 held a steno pad from a parent circle. In the margin, if questioned, say Coach Night. Times matched Miss Rose's carbons from the 60s. We flagged 5 cross-decade matches. Haskin added them to the conspiracy chart. Columns by decade, rows by county. No poetry, just grid. Saturday, clinic back room. 12 new walk-ins. We ran triage. 2 wanted counseling only. 8 wanted reports. 2 had physical evidence. 1 diary, 1 audio tape. The tape was clean. Kitchen clock ticking. A voice saying, Thursday is rehearsal. We copied, logged, returned the original. I taught paper versus lies in the side room. Date, time, location, plus badge numbers if police respond. Kids wrote it like homework. That's the point. Monday dawn. Slater Community Hall. We reenacted a Thursday, but with warrants. Souls staged unmarked cars 2 blocks out. We watched through a side window while they set folding chairs and a chalkboard. At 7:29 p.m., we walked in. Sheriff's office, hands on tables. 1 runner bolted to the back door. Deputy Lane was there. Calm arrests. On the chalk tray, a key fob labeled Annex. Same bird stickers as the ledger from Part 3. Patterns hold. Processing took an hour. We cataloged. Cash tin, rosters, a phone with a schedule labeled Birds. In the office closet, a metal panel locked with a 4-digit pad. I tried 0518. Click. Panel opened to a small DVR. 4 channels. Parking lot, hallway, back room, exit. We pulled the drive, slapped an evidence label, sealed the panel. Next day, bank forfeiture hearing. Tate's counsel argued community service and free speech. Morales put up the film rolls from the Carter House ceiling tin and the Prairie Hearth proof pages. The judge didn't sermonize. You used a charitable shell to facilitate criminal acts. Account seized, lien perfected. Gavel done. Restitution fund created. Admin by the clinic. Quarterly reporting. Glasser's grand jury added 1 superseding count on Brack, structuring payments to dodge permit thresholds. Brack's cooperation memo grew legs. Donor list, guest teacher names, plus 2 email threads with a county official soft-walking complaints. The official resigned before the press release hit. We sent a referral to Ethics. Ethics sent a letter barring him from future public contracts. Simple line. Lasting effect. We needed to starve the pipeline. I met 3 county copy shops owners at 7 a.m. with coffee and the new rule. If you see these phrases, make a call. No speeches. 1 owner taped the sheet at his register. Another added a flag in his POS. Any job with training, rotation, coach night, triggers a manager review. That's how you turn policy into friction. Midweek, a text from Mrs. O'Malley in Erie. 2 men asking old questions about a quiet curriculum. I called the local detective, gave him our docket numbers, asked him to log the contact. He walked over to the men, asked for IDs. They left town. Paper beats rumor. Paper travels. Back in Milton, I opened the garage for the hemming shop. Grayson rolled in a tarp of flags from the high school. Between hems, I phoned the AG team, asked them to add libraries to mandatory vendor briefings. Approved. I dropped laminated checklists at the book drop with a note to the director. Front desk ready lines on 1 page. Use. Thursday night, one more loose board to nail. A warehouse on County Road 9 leased by PH Logistics. We had a warrant keyed to Cray's map. Inside, pallets of parent circles kits, a labeler, and a pallet jack with a fresh battery. On a steel shelf, gray boxes like the ones we'd seen before. One box held bracelets, but not literal, colored wristbands for roles, blue for coach, yellow for mentor. We photographed, bagged, and locked the door behind us with county tape across the latch. Press call Friday. I don't do podiums. The AG read 3 sentences. Morales read 1. Then Keegan pointed at a slide with a list. Revoked permits, seized accounts, injunctions, hotline stats. No adjectives. Reporters want quotes. We gave numbers. Cleanup phase started. The clinic expanded hours. Janie trained 2 volunteers on our tab system. The Fair Board updated contracts statewide. USPS revoked Prairie Hearth's nonprofit permit. Printer added an internal ban list. The county clerk put our checklist online with a big blue Report Here button. I sent Mrs. Dallas a copy of the injunction against PH Logistics and a note. The door you opened kept opening. She replied with a photo of her back porch basil and 3 words, on to harvest. That night, I closed the notebook and set out tomorrow's clipboards for Paper versus Lies. Newtown kids, same rules. Date, time, who said what, who saw it, who you called. The ones who learn that young don't need speeches. They need a pen, a box for copies, and a number on the fridge. We're at the last mile. Not victory, maintenance. You keep the checklist posted, the copier stocked, the rules live. And when another booth tries a new name with the same script, you already know the code. You write it down, shut it off, move the file to the stack, and go home in time to water tomatoes. So part 5, the last mile. 8 a.m., AG's policy room. Whiteboard squares, dry markers dying mid-stroke. I slid the fair checklist across the table and said, make it rule text. 2 lawyers translated it into code sections, added an enforcement note. Revoke vendor permits on first violation. No grace period. We tacked on a hotline script for clerks. 3 questions, then transferred to investigators. Draft stamped, routed for notice and comment by Friday. 10:30 a.m. Deposition. R. Cray. Real name? Randall Cray. Logistics consultant for Prairie Hearth. Moonlighting at the printer. Haskin ran tight. Did you order bulk mail? Yes. Who paid? Brack. Did you see curriculum language? Yes. Was final rehearsal in the copy? He hesitated. Yes. We slid the proof with his sign-off. He folded fast, provided a routing map, Des Moines hub, then county spurs, then private drop points coded by birds. I wrote each bird next to a location. Hawk, Slater, Sparrow, Radnor, Heron, Kelly Ridge. Noon, printer floor. Offset presses humming, the smell of ink like pennies in rain. Manager produced job jackets with carbon slips, each with an internal code. One code repeated, 0518, same pencil number as on box 21. I asked, what's 0518? He said, plant default pin, unbinders, file room. People reuse numbers. Systems love it. Glasser grinned. We walked to the caged inventory, tapped C08, bolt slid. Inside, 2 skids of pamphlets and a banker's box labeled Returns. Returns held complaint letters from 3 counties and 1 refund check never cashed. We bagged the lot. 2:15 p.m., courthouse annex, rulemaking hearing. 5 attendees, 1 mic that squealed. A lobbyist tested a tradition speech. I answered with exhibits, the volunteer script, the risk matrix, the Thursday rotation sheet. The clerk read the adoption language. Vote carried. Effective in 30 days. I took 6 printed copies and drove one to the Grange myself. 4:40 p.m. County records. Boxes 2123. Janie's tabs paid off. Box 22 held a steno pad from a parent circle. In the margin, if questioned, say Coach Night. Times matched Miss Rose's carbons from the 60s. We flagged 5 cross-decade matches. Haskin added them to the conspiracy chart. Columns by decade, rows by county. No poetry, just grid. Saturday, clinic back room. 12 new walk-ins. We ran triage. 2 wanted counseling only. 8 wanted reports. 2 had physical evidence. 1 diary. 1 audio tape. The tape was clean. Kitchen clock ticking. A voice saying, Thursday is rehearsal. We copied, logged, returned the original. I taught paper versus lies in the side room. Date, time, location, plus badge numbers if police respond. Kids wrote it like homework. That's the point. Monday dawn, Slater Community Hall. We reenacted a Thursday, but with warrants. Souls staged unmarked cars 2 blocks out. We watched through a side window while they set folding chairs and a chalkboard. At 7:29 p.m., we walked in. Sheriff's office, hands on tables. One runner bolted to the back door. Deputy Lane was there. Calm arrests. On the chalk tray, a key fob labeled Annex. Same bird stickers as the ledger from Part 3. Patterns hold. Processing took an hour. We cataloged. Cash tin, rosters, a phone with a schedule labeled Birds. In the office closet, a metal panel locked with a 4-digit pad. I tried 0508, click. Panel opened to a small DVR. 4 channels. Parking lot, hallway, back room, exit. We pulled the drive, slapped an evidence label, sealed the panel. Next day, bank forfeiture hearing. Tate's counsel argued community service and free speech. Morales put up the film rolls from the Carter House ceiling tin and the Prairie Hearth proof pages. The judge didn't sermonize. You used a charitable shell to facilitate criminal acts. Accounts seized. Lien perfected. Gavel, done. Restitution fund created. Admin by the clinic. Quarterly reporting. Glasser's grand jury added 1 superseding count on Brack. Structuring payments to dodge permit thresholds. Brack's cooperation memo grew legs. Donor list. Guest teacher names. Plus 2 email threads with a county official's soft-walking complaints. The official resigned before the press release hit. We sent a referral to Ethics. Ethics sent a letter barring him from future public contracts. Simple line, lasting effect. We needed to starve the pipeline. I met 3 county copy shops owners at 7 a.m. with coffee and the new rule. If you see these phrases, make a call. No speeches. One owner taped the sheet at his register. Another added a flag in his POS. Any job with training, rotation, coach night, triggers a manager review. That's how you turn policy into friction. Midweek, a text from Mrs. O'Malley in Erie. 2 men asking old questions about a quiet curriculum. I called the local detective, gave him our docket numbers, asked him to log the contact. He walked over to the men, asked for IDs. They left town. Paper beats rumor, paper travels. Back in Milton, I opened the garage for the hemming shop. Grayson rolled in a tarp of flags from the high school. Between hems, I phoned the AG team, asked them to add libraries to mandatory vendor briefings. Approved. I dropped laminated checklists at the book drop with a note to the director. Front desk ready lines on 1 page. Use. Thursday night, 1 more loose board to nail. A warehouse on County Road 9 leased by PH Logistics. We had a warrant keyed to Cray's map. Inside, pallets of Parent Circles kits, a labeler, and a pallet jack with a fresh battery. On a steel shelf, gray boxes like the ones we'd seen before. One box held bracelets, but not literal, colored wristbands for roles. Blue for coach, yellow for mentor. We photographed, bagged, and locked the door behind us with county tape across the latch. Press call Friday. I don't do podiums. The AG read 3 sentences. Morales read 1. Then Keegan pointed at a slide with a list. Revoked permits, seized accounts, injunctions, hotline stats. No adjectives. Reporters want quotes. We gave numbers. Cleanup phase started. The clinic expanded hours. Janie trained 2 volunteers on our tab system. The Fair Board updated contracts statewide. USPS revoked Prairie Hearth's nonprofit permit. Printer added an internal ban list. The county clerk put our checklist online with a big blue Report Here button. I sent Mrs. Dallas a copy of the injunction against PH Logistics and a note. The door you opened kept opening. She replied with a photo of her back porch basil and 3 words, on to harvest. That night I closed the notebook and set out tomorrow's clipboards for Paper versus Lies. Newtown kids, same rules. Date, time, who said what, who saw it, who you called. The ones who learn that young don't need speeches. They need a pen, a box for copies, and a number on the fridge. We're at the last mile. Not victory, maintenance. You keep the checklist posted, the copier stocked, the rules live. And when another booth tries a new name with the same script, you already know the code. You write it down, shut it off, move the file to the stack, and go home in time to water tomatoes. Part 6. Counterpunch. Monday, 6:12 a.m., Milton Post Office. Clerk slid a manila pouch across the counter. No return address, Columbus postmark. Inside, a thumb drive and a single line. You missed one. I didn't plug it in. I double-bagged, wrote time, place, clerk's name, and drove it to the AG lab. Chain of custody started at 7:03. 8:40 a.m., library basement. Paper versus Lies. I handed out fresh clipboards. Halfway through the drill, Grayson texted a photo. Flyer on a telephone pole near the feed store. Parent Circles returns under new leadership. Volunteers welcome. Same typeface, new logo. I circled the dates, shot them to Keegan and Souls, and pinned a printout to my corkboard. County Road 4, Thursday, 7 p.m. Noon, AG lab call. The drive held a schedule spreadsheet with tabs named by months and a tab marked Legacy. Codes matched Cray's bird key, plus a new symbol, a triangle. Morales traced the owner of Thursday's hall rental, Wheaton Grange, fronted by a shell called Folkwise Services. I pulled county filings. Folkwise formed last month by a paralegal from Brack's old firm. Same game, fresher coat. 3:10 p.m., we briefed in the clinic back room. Souls brought a floor plan. Lane marked entry points. My job, front table triage, clipboard bait, a sign-in sheet with a friendly header and a footer that read, "By signing, you consent to recording." Haskin grinned. We set the pretext as vendor compliance check. Janie packed evidence bags. I packed decaf and cookies. People talk when there's sugar. 6:58 p.m., Wheaton Grange. String lights, folding chairs, a whiteboard with Coach Night, written in bubble letters. A woman in a cardigan, new face, welcomed me and reached for my clipboard. I let her sign first. Timestamp 7:01 p.m., her own handwriting. I asked for the restroom, walked past the office door, saw a cabled DVR on a shelf. My pocket fob from Slater had the same brand. I tried the default code on the panel, 000. It chirped open. I snapped a photo, closed it, and returned to my seat. 7:07 p.m., she started. We restore heritage skills. I put a cookie plate on the table, smiled, and asked, "Do you use Thursday rotations?" She blinked. "We don't use that term." Behind me, the side door eased and stopped. Soul's waiting on my signal. She clicked a slide. First bullet. Rotation cadence. Thurs. Sat. I raised my hand. "Could you define cadence?" Lane stepped in. "We'll take it from here." Badges out. Calm, rehearsed. County warrant. Keep your hands visible. One man moved for the back. Grayson, planted as maintenance, shut the exit and rolled the pallet jack in front of it. The room settled. We split tasks. I took the office, pulled the DVR, labeled it, bagged 4 job folders and a square tin with a bird sticker. Tin held index cards, dates, roles, initials. I photographed each before bagging. Haskin walked the whiteboard to the copy shop hotline rule. Cardigan read aloud the waiver she'd signed at the door and wilted. 8:22 p.m., parking lot. A gray sedan idled under the elm. I walked up with Lane. The driver cracked the window. Brack's paralegal. "Ma'am," Lane said, "step out." She did. I took her phone, airplane mode on, into a Faraday sleeve. She asked for a lawyer. Lane nodded and read the script. No drama, just sequence. Next morning, 9:30 a.m., the AG's war room. We laid out the Wheaton grid and the drive tabs. The triangle symbol mapped to Mentor kits shipped from out of state. Morales checked shipping. All labels traced to a fulfillment center in Indiana. Keegan dialed the AG there. By noon, we had a joint tasking order. I faxed, our bird key with a sticky. "You'll see 05 Waiteen pins. Try them first." Wednesday, 5:40 a.m., Indiana warehouse raid streamed to our screen. Deputy on body cam whispered, "Pad has 4 digits." He tried 0508. Click. He panned to rows of cartons stamped Folkwise. Inside, wristbands, scripts, a printer with preloaded templates. They bagged, sealed, and slapped state tape. Back home, cleanup phase. I met the fare board with a 1-pager. Booth vetting in 12 steps. EIN check, registered agent match, copy shop hot phrases, Thursday-Saturday flags, emergency cancel clause. They adopted it by acclamation. The school district added our checklist to facility rentals. One superintendent asked, "What if they sue?" I pointed to the injunction in the Grange arrest log. He nodded and signed. A loose thread remained. The triangle contact who paid for out-of-state freight. Name on the wire? Halbridge Trust. No website, Wyoming mailbox. I printed the trusteeship filing. 2 names, 1 familiar. A retired county judge's brother. Not illegal, just ugly. Keegan's team sent a civil subpoena. The trust folded rather than disclose and wired a settlement to the restitution fund. Numbers, not speeches. Friday night, clinic. We held a short class for print shop owners and librarians. I brought a box of old job jackets from the Prairie Hearth case and passed them around. See the repeat? Same sign-off, same code, different shells. The room got it. A copy shop owner asked for laminated hot words. I had them ready. He taped one to his cutter. Saturday, 8:05 a.m., my garage hemming shop. A pickup rolled slow and stopped. 2 men in ball caps. One leaned out. "You ought to stop poking around fares, ma'am." I turned my phone on video and set it face down on the bench, lens toward the door. "Name?" I asked. Silence. I repeated, "Name and date for my notebook." He smirked. "Write Hawks." They rolled off. I texted the clip to Souls and posted the plate to the county tip portal with the tag harassment. By lunch, Lane called. Plate matched a rental out of Dayton. The agency sent driver data. Keegan drafted a protective order. A judge signed it by 3 p.m. I printed 2 copies and taped one to my storm door. Persons at this address are protected by court order. Visibility is a deterrent. Sunday, I baked 6 zucchini breads and wrote thank you notes. To Mrs. O'Malley, to the copy shops, to the librarian who added the report here button, to Janie for red tabs on box 22. Small things, logged with dates. Systems run on people and paper. You keep both in good repair. Monday again. The AG posted the Wheaton outcome sheet. Charges, seized assets, hotline stats, rule references. No adjectives. Morales sent me a single text. All the way to record. I stuck it under a magnet shaped like a tomato. That evening, I sat with Lila at the kitchen table. I handed her a new composition book and a cheap date stamp. Toolkit, I said. She flipped it open. Inside the cover, I'd written the algorithm in 6 lines. 1. Open the window. 2. Find the truck. 3. Change the name. 4. Copy everything. 5. Hand it to someone with a badge. 6. Water the peppers. She laughed, stamped the date, and wrote her bus route start time. Start small, stay exact. That's how you push back without noise. We're past the big swings. Now it's filters, defaults, posted rules, and 10-second decisions that stop a thing before it grows. If another shell crawls out, we've got pins, scripts, and people trained to recognize the cadence. I keep the singer oiled, the clipboard stacked, and the number on the fridge. The rest is repetition done right. Part 7. Ledger closed. Tuesday, 9 a.m., State House Annex. I swore in, raised my right hand, and gave names like reading a grocery list. Committee on Youth Facilities wanted practices, not feelings. Good. I ran them through our flow. False shells, rental gaps, Thursday-Saturday cadence, the bird key, the triangle shipments, the halting order. They asked for a takeaway. I slid a 1-page bill draft. Vetting of third-party parent circles, public rental logs, default camera retention, and a hotline banner requirement on any flyer using school grounds. Chair rapped the gavel. We'll mark it up. By month's end, it passed 84-12. The same week, Morales forwarded the Indiana warehouse inventory. Final counts matched our tabs. No surprises. The restitution fund cut checks to 3 counties. The trust that tried to buy silence signed a consent decree. Lane texted, "Your sticky note on 0518 will be in Academy slides." We did one more sweep for stragglers. Keegan's analysts mapped every shell linked to Folkwise, then ran agents through the Secretary of State sites in 5 states. 2 entities auto-dissolved for failure to file. One tried to pivot to Heritage Crafts. The Fair Board denied their booth before the email cooled, citing the new rule I'd pushed. No argument, no shouting, just a clause and a timestamp. At the library, I turned Paper versus Lies into a kit's kit. 3 clipboards, a manual, sample waivers, a rubber date stamp, and a flash drive with our checklists. We mailed 50 to county clerks. I added a line to page 1. If you're the only adult in the room, get a second adult or shut it down. Janie translated the packet to Spanish. The Union Print Shop ran the first 1,000 on recycled stock. Nothing fancy, stapled, hole-punched. Autumn, a new batch of flyers tried a softer mask. Neighbor skill nights, pastel fonts. The copy shop owner we'd trained called me at 7:17 a.m., read the bullets, and said, "Hot words, round 3. We triaged. And didn't exist. Agent address was a shipping store. Phone routed to a VoIP trunk. Souls filed a quick declaratory action. A judge granted a temporary halt before the chairs were arranged. I baked muffins and delivered them to the clerk who stayed late to stamp it. You feed the machine that feeds you. December, the AG issued the final memo. Cases closed, practices banned under the new administrative code, training module published, restitution ledger public. They used my phrase, no adjectives. The press called. I told them the same 6 lines I tell Lila. They wanted tears. I offered procedures. The story ran anyway, with a photo of my singer and the pepper baskets. On New Year's Day, we put the paper where it belongs. Grayson and I boxed the original notebooks, mine and Miss Rose's copies, and drove to the county archive. The clerk logged the accession numbers and printed barcodes. I signed with my old block hand. She slid a copy toward me. You want the locket scanned? No, I said. Metal belongs to family. Paper belongs to the record. Spring thaw. We went back to Polk City one last time. Me, Helen, and Lila. The Carter place is a rental now. The new owners plant pumpkins. We didn't ask to go in. We walked the perimeter, checked the fence line, and left 3 copies of the checklist with the township clerk. At the cemetery, I put nothing on the stones. No speeches. Helen checked the dates against my ledger, nodded, and we left. Back in Milton, I wound down the hemming business and formalized the Saturday class. The school board folded Paper versus Lies into 9th grade civics. I switched from cookies to boxed crackers. Less sugar, fewer ants. We added one drill. What to do when someone says, stop filming? Answer. Say the date aloud, show hands, hold steady, keep the lens on the floor if needed. A church 2 towns over asked me to speak. I brought forms instead of stories. Rental addendum, sign-in template, consent notice, chain of custody labels. We practiced filling them in. At the end, a deacon raised his hand. Ma'am, how did you live with it? I held up the date stamp. 1 mark a day turns into a wall. Small epilogues. The paralegal from Brack's shop moved to real estate closings. I mailed her a copy of the new rule with a yellow tab on registered agent liability. No note. The Grange Hall posted our hotline plaque by the light switch. The janitor sends me a photo every month to prove it's still up. I print them and clip them into a file labeled Visible. The copy shop owner framed the hot words sheet. Customers point and ask, "What's that?" He says, "Insurance." The library teen desk keeps loaner clipboards next to the manga. Every week, 3 come back with fresh dents. Lila took the locket on her 16th. She also asked for the notebook. I told her to start her own. We sat at the kitchen table and built her first page index. Bus route notes, volunteer hours, voter registration, landlord contacts for the community room, phone tree for after-hours closures. She stamped the date and wrote, "Grandma says, feelings are fuel, not proof." Her words, not mine. Good. So the ledger closes like this. We named what it was. We took the shells apart. We taught by doing. We wrote rules you can post on a door. We handed the record to an archive that will outlive us. The rest is pepper plants, oiled machines, and clipboards stacked by the back door. If you're looking for a last speech, you won't get it. Here's the final line I'll offer. The same one I sign in teenagers' kits. Open the window. Find a truck. Change the name. Copy everything. Hand it to someone with a badge. Water the peppers. That's the algorithm. Run it with your streets and your names.